Second Kiddushin Daf Yud Beis. We begin several lines into the daf at the two dots, where the Gemara refers back to the Mishnah. The Gemara wants to discuss what is the value of a pruta. When Metzil says that the minimum amount for Kiddushin is a pruta, what pruta are we talking about? The Gemara will discuss what moment in history are we referring to, as well as what location on earth are we referring to. If there are variations within the pruta, what do we go by? And the Gemara will also get into several incidents where people used Kiddushin items of questionable value and how we were able to judge those cases. So the Gemara begins by first discussing if the value of a pruta is fixed or if the value of a pruta varies from time to time. So the Gemara quotes of Yosef, who says that a pruta is whatever people valued it in that time, in that place. It does not have a fixed amount. It can vary widely. In whatever time it is valued by those people as a pruta, that's what the pruta is. So Abai had a kash on that, as we seem to have clear indications that a pruta has a fixed amount, because we have a Mishnah that says that a pruta is 1/8 of an Italian iser. That means that it's fixed at that value. So the Gemara says, no, maybe that was only telling me, that Brisa was telling me what the value was in the days of Moshe Rabbeinu. That is, the original pruta was valued at 1/8 of an Italian iser, but it doesn't have to stay that way, and every generation can have their own determination. Every era can have their own determination of the value of the pruta. So the Gemara proves that that's not correct, because we actually have a machlokes Amoraim what the value of a pruta is, and they each evaluated in their generation, and they were discussing and analyzing. The Gemara will get into this machlokes more later. They were discussing what is the correct fixed value of the pruta. So you see that there was something which applied across generations, that they were having this conversation, not only talking about the pruta of Moshe Rabbeinu. And what is that machlokes? So the Gemara quotes it. You have Rav Dimi, who's saying that Rav Simo evaluated in his generation, and he had 1/8 of an Italian iser, and Ravin, quoting of the Stoi, Rabbi Yana, and Rabbi Shia had it as 1/6 of an Italian iser, slightly more valuable. So Abai's kasha is that you see clearly that the value of a pruta is fixed. It does not vary by era. So Abai says if that's correct, then you have a big problem, because the Gemara, there's a brisa discussing the value of karbanos and showing how for a tiny monetary avera of misusing hektish, one has to bring a valuable carbon that is many times more valuable. If he, let's say, misused only a pruta's worth of hektish, he'll still have to bring a carbon that has a minimum value of 2 slime. And there are 2,000 or more prutas in 2 slime. So you see, therefore, that what the Brisa is bringing out is you see the significance of an avera that you end up having to spend 2,000 times or more than you had hana. So the Gemara's kasha, what Rav Yosef is asking Abaye, he's saying, if you're telling me that it has a fixed value, that fixed value doesn't add up to 2,000 times, you don't get 2,000 prutas into slime. So what does this mean? It's not even 2,000. Here it says 2,000 or more. It's even more than 2,000. The only way that makes sense is if it varies, and it's talking in a generation in which it really was worth so little that it was less. There were 2,000 or more prutas in 2 slime. So the Gemara answers by saying, although there are 2,000, there are 1,536. If you make the calculation now, that's how much it adds up to. Rashi calculates us for us. There are 4 dinarim in a sela. There are 24 Isser Haritalki, Italian Isurim in a dinar, for a total of 96 Isser Haritalki in 1 sela. There are 8 prutas in an Isser Haritalki, as we said. It's 1/8 of an Isser. So therefore we have 768 per sela times 2, and 2 slime we have 1,536. So Gemara says 1,536 is still not 2,000. Gemara says no. But if you rounded it off, you would round it to the nearest 1,000, you would get 2,000, because it's more than 1,500, so to the nearest 1,000, you would get 2,000, and therefore you could round it off and you could say approximately 2,000. And we just have to change the text. Instead of saying a bit more than 2,000, we have to say nearly 2,000. And therefore that qualifies as nearly 2,000. Now, the Gemara wants to go into this machlokes that we mentioned earlier. We had Rav Dimi quoting a number of Talmid Chacham who came up with 8 prutas per Isser, and Ravin came up with 6 prutas per Isser. The Bible wants to say that there's a Machlokes Tanaim that reflects the same thing. It's a Machlokes Tanaim, Tanna Kama and Shimon ben Gamliel discussing how we evaluate a pruta. And we have 2 different chains of coins, 2 different systems of coins to help us evaluate what a pruta is. Again, we want to figure out how many prutas are in an Isser. So the first one, the Tanna Kama says there are 6 ma'ah in a dinar, 2 pundayin in a ma'ah, and 12 in a dinar, 2 iser in a pundayin, and 24 iser in a dinar, 2 musmisin in an iser, 2 kontronkin in a musmas, and 2 prutos in a kontrak, which comes up to a total of 192 prutos per dinar. And since there are 24 isurim in a dinar, if you divide that 192 by 24 to get how many prutas are in an iser, you would get 8. 192 divided by 24 is 8. Now, so therefore, this system, the Tanna Kama, has 8 prutas per iser. Now, the Gemara's the other opinion is of Shimon ben Gamliel. He doesn't calculate iser, so we're going to have to figure out how much it is by figuring out the value per dinar and then dividing by 24 to get the value per isser, because again we know that there are 24 isser in a dinar. So the system that he has is there, again, we start with ma per dinar, there are 6. Then we go to there are 3 hadarsin per ma for a total of 18 per dinar. There are 2 hensin per hadras, a total of 36 per dinar. There are 2 shmanin per Hanates for a total of 72 per dinar, and there are 2 prutas per shaman for a total of 144 per dinar. You have 144 prutas per dinar divided by 24 to get how many per isser. 144 divided by 24 again would be 6, obviously. So therefore, you have this machlokes works out to 6 prutim per dinar, or 6 prutim per isser, or 8 prutim per isser, same as the machlokes between the Tanaim, which we saw earlier. So the Gemara responds, Abaye said this specifically to Rav Dimi, and Rav Dimi said no. We all fit in the Tanna Kama. We all have the Tanna Kama's calculation of coins. Those were the coins that we had, and it works out that in his generation there were 8 prutas per dinar, which is what I said. Ravin is referring to an era in which the Isser decreased in value, and now you had 32 Isser per dinar. That's why, in order to figure out of the 192 prutas that there are per dinar, how many are per Isser, you would have to divide 192 by 32, and that's why we'd come up with 6 instead of 8 that I did. That concludes the question of the time of the pruta. The Gemara now goes into the place of the pruta. So the Gemara quotes Shmuel, says the halacha. Anytime somebody gives Kiddushin, even if it's the smallest amount, you have to be concerned that it's worth a pruta somewhere. Maybe someplace values it as a pruta, and therefore it counts as a pruta, as a shava pruta, and it's valid Kiddushin. So you have to be concerned that the Kiddushin is valid. Shmuel's case specifically was talking about somebody who gave a woman a date, which is generally not worth a pruta, and Shmuel said it could be in Madai, it is. Now, the Gemara asks, we saw in our Mishnah, Beis Hillel said it has to be a pruta. So if you have to assume something, anything, anywhere might be worth a pruta, so why would you tell me it has to be a pruta, and that has to be a shava pruta, it has to be worth a pruta? Just say any object, because it could be worth a pruta somewhere. So the Gemara says no, there's a difference. Beis Hillel is telling you what's Kiddushin Vadai. Shmuel is telling you what's Kiddushin Misafek. You have to be concerned it might be a Kiddushin Kiyuz, it might be a pruta somewhere, but you could not go kula assuming that it is a valid Kiddushin if you don't know that it is worth a pruta somewhere. Now, what's the case where that would be? So if somebody gives a woman something which does not seem to be worth a pruta, and then she takes Kiddushin from someone else, is the second Kiddushin valid or not? So if you know it's worth, the first one is worth a pruta, then the second one isn't valid. He's Makadosh an already married woman. You don't have to worry about that, and she's moved to the first one. However, if we don't know that the first one is worth a pruta, Shmuel's Chiddush is you have to assume it's worth a pruta somewhere, and it might be Kiddushin. But on the other hand, it might not be Kiddushin, and therefore the Kiddushin she got from the second person is valid, and now she's also to the first one. So you have to be concerned that both of them are valid Kiddushins, and she's not allowed to marry either of them. So the Gemara brings some cases. The Gemara says there was a man who was Mekadesh a woman with a bag of fluff, like cotton balls. And Rav Simon Bar Chia sat before Rav, and he was examining it to try to see if it was worth a pruta. Samar asked why. Shmuel said you have to assume that it's worth a pruta somewhere, even if it's not worth a pruta here. That doesn't prove anything. So the Gemara says no. He wanted to know if this is Kiddushin Mitaras Vada. You want to know if you could count this as a Vadi Kiddushin, that she could stay married to the first one and not have to marry the second person. The case was where she took Kiddushin from someone else afterwards. Next case has a different outcome, but a similar beginning. That's somebody who was a Mekadosh woman with a blue rock. So Chizda sat down, and he was trying to calculate whether it was worth a pruta or not. So you might ask why you have to be concerned that it's valid Kiddushin anyway. And the case here was where she went and she got Kiddushin from somebody else. So Shmuel said it's all Aser. So the Gemara says Chizda doesn't hold like Shmuel. Chizda holds it doesn't matter what's going on somewhere else. If it's not worth a pruta here, her first Kiddushin is worthless, and her second Kiddushin is valid. So the Gemara says that the girl's mother came and she testified that on the day that the Kiddushin happened, it was worth a shavar pruta. The market value at that time of this blue rock was a shavar pruta, was a pruta at that time, which would mean that she's married to the first one, and the second person that she took Kiddushin from is useless, is invalid, and she's forbidden to the second one. So on that, Chizda said, you're not trusted. You can't say on your own, without evidence, that it was worth a pruta at the time that the first Kiddushin happened. Now, the Gemara takes a bit of a digression here to discuss the fact that she's not trusted. The Gemara says a similar story happened with Yehudis, who was Rechia's wife. She was giving birth to twins, and she was having a very hard time with the delivery. And her mother said to her that your father was Mekabel Kiddushin for you as a child, and therefore you're really married to someone else. You're not married to your husband. You're actually usher to your own husband, who was Rechia, because your father married you off to someone else beforehand. So when she said this over to Rechia said, your mother is not trusted to make you usher to me. She doesn't have the ability to create that testimony is not substantiated, and she can't say that. So there are abundance said to Rav Chizda why there's witnesses. This woman is not just saying